a lot of this journey is dependent on how we feel, like our state of mind, and just getting through those hurdles takes a lot of mental training and awareness of how we feel and those emotions that come along with it.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Real Estate Investors Club podcast. We're back with Stefanie, young investor, and this is part 2 of our mini series that kind of goes through her journey of going from being a complete neophyte to somebody who's closed on their first investment property. So in our last episode, we talked a little bit about, the initial phase in which Stefanie and her partner were like in the YouTube reading phase, and then how they moved to the let's get out of our apartment and get into the networking space, start meeting some people. And then what we're going to talk about today is the transition to a higher level of commitment, let's say, where they start putting down some money for paid events and where they start to develop a team that can help them invest. But so, Stefanie, do you want to just like give our audience, you've already introduced yourself before, but like just give our audience a little shout out, maybe position us where we are in the dialogue.
Hey. Hi, Terrie. Thanks for having me again. I'm just here today because I wanted to share my experience, and I hope I can at least motivate one person in your audience to take the next step and maybe find some relatability in my story, because I'm not that far into my journey. And I don't know, I've just tried to get over the little hurdles, and I want to share that experience and motivate and encourage people to do the same and not get bogged down by all the negativity that they hear, negativity that they hear externally or internally. So that's why I'm here today.
Definitely. And to kind of break up into steps, maybe the tendency like in the industry to, I know for sure on the podcast, we have a lot of, very advanced investors or experts on the show. And the fact of like going through somebody's step-by-step journey of how they got started will hopefully demystify that process for people who are really in the beginning phases. So, in the last show, we kind of stopped at the point where you guys were getting comfortable going to networking events. And then what happened that made you want to take the next step? What seemed like the logical next step? And then what happened that made you want to pay for some training?
I think we kind of fell into it. I didn't plan on paying for training just because we're a little bit frugal and stingy sometimes, but someone that I'd met at your networking event had mentioned that there was this multifamily training. It was a full weekend boot camp, and we were really hesitant. We're like, oh, we have plans with friends. Like, do we really want to miss out on that for some real estate? And in the end, we're like, okay, let's do it. Like, if we want to get to where we want to be, we need to take these sacrifices or make these sacrifices. And we bit the bullet. It was $200 a person, which I feel like is a lot, even though I know that there's trainings that are much more expensive. But I was like, okay, like $200 divided by 2 days, it's $100 a day. If it's 8 hours a day, I was literally doing the math down to the hour to see if it was worth it. And so, we bit the bullet. We went. We just felt like it was something that we had to do if we wanted to move forward. It was kind of a compromise because we didn't want to pay for the $5,000 or $10,000 trainings at this point. And we had already been spending the like $30 it is to go to the networking events. So it was a kind of a compromise. It was the next step in this journey.
How was it?
Good. Surprisingly, I don't know. I didn't get from it what I thought I would get from it. It was fun because it exposed me to new people outside of the networking space, the network that I'd already created from the Real Estate Investors Club network, networking event. So I got to meet new people. I learned a lot from those people, actually. There were some periods during the day where it was like break time and I got to talk to them. And a lot of them were talking about how they invested outside of the province or outside of their hometown. And that was something that always scared me. And the fact that I like encountered so many people that had done that, that gave me the confidence to start looking elsewhere. And I realized it wasn't as impossible as I originally thought. What I did leave with from the presenter wasn't much in terms of like practical information. I felt like it was a huge pitch to like pay for the $16,000 program that came along with it. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. But I think the most valuable thing that I took away from it was the motivation that he left us with. So I'm grateful for that. At least I got something from the event. And just being there made me realize that I think this was the wake-up call that made me realize it's a lot of this journey is dependent on how we feel, like our state of mind, and just getting through those hurdles takes a lot of mental training and awareness of how we feel and those emotions that come along with it. So I definitely left with that lesson learned.
What made that a light bulb come on for you? The mental, the like realizing how much of it is mental.
Because he just made it, the way he had set up the course, or at least the first day, was a lot of like, what do you think you can achieve? And he did like some exercises where we would just write down like double our goal, and then we quadrupled our goal. And just having it written down, like it just empowered us to feel like we can do so much more. And that whole exercise and the whole exercise that he made us do made me feel like I can do so much more, and that it's really how we think about it. We set our own limitations at the end of the day. Like if I can constantly tell myself, oh, I can't do it, like how will I ever get there? I'm never going to get there. Like I have to actually believe that I can do something, that it's going to be a long, tough journey, but we're going to get there. And even if I don't reach my goal, like that's okay, because I'll still be a few steps ahead of where I was before. And that was very comforting and reassuring. So that really set off the light bulb. And we left that weekend feeling super motivated and just felt like we can do anything. And even though we didn't leave with a lot of knowledge, like theoretical knowledge of real estate and real estate investing, we at least left with like that next little push that we needed to get to the next step of the journey.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just like pull on that a little bit, because I think this is one of these things that, I think what you're referring to is limiting beliefs, right? And I think that like one of the first things that people do on a success journey, because like ultimately you're living a success journey through the vehicle of real estate, is to start to take apart some of those limiting beliefs, that box that we believe we have to stay inside, right? And like, I mean, if I go back to my own thought process, when this started happening for me, I was 25, and I think I grew up with these kind of blinders that you get from your community, from your environment, and like the feedback you get in terms of what people around you think is possible for you.
Yeah.
Right. And so like we kind of live inside this prison, and we're like, oh, but this is just how life is. Like, this is just how it is. Right. And one of the first mental steps on that way is to realize, well, actually, like nobody's holding a gun to my head. Like all of these things are products of choices that I'm making or decisions that I'm making, perhaps unconsciously, but that like the first thing to crack out of that egg is I have to see the walls for what they are, which is mental constructs that are designed to keep me safe, but that ultimately are not going to lead me to live my full potential.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think that's great that you guys had that experience. The other thing, I want to just say a few words about selecting training. And if you like if you're not a part of the industry, maybe you don't understand how this works. And so I'm just going to kind of break it down for people who are in that phase where they want to pay for training, but maybe want to be a bit vigilant about what they get sucked into, right? So basically, like, as somebody who's in the coaching industry, like, we sell coaching. I know how this works, and I'm going to break it down for you so that you guys can kind of make an informed decision. So usually when you're structuring a coaching program, we have what's called like a value ladder. Okay. And so you'll have an entry level product, which is like, $20, $30 product, be it a networking event, a book, an online course, maybe even a freebie. Like, a lot of things in exchange for your email address, you'll get a free gift, right? So, a free ebook or something like that brings you into the ecosystem and then puts you in touch with the coach or the organization's marketing. And then the way the marketing is structured is that it's supposed to move you sort of up the value hierarchy. And so very often there's like the free product to get your email address, to get you into the ecosystem. There's the $20, $30 product to have you as a client. And the goal of those products is to move you up the value ladder. And so, like, for you, in your perspective, $200 for a weekend, it seems like a lot of money. Honestly, in the coaching world, it's peanuts. Like, 2 full days of training for $200 is nothing. And so when you, as a client or as somebody who's approaching this, sees that, your reaction should be, okay, if I'm going to be paying something that seems too cheap for what it is, like, honestly, a day of training should be worth minimum $500-$600 minimum. Okay. And so, like, if you're paying a large discounted price, what it's showing you is this is a step on the value ladder that's designed to pull me to the next level. Okay. Because you're not paying the full value. And so as a result, the fact that you had this experience of there was not a ton of content, there's not a ton of content because they're saving the content for the next year. Okay. And so, like, as you see this, like, let's say a weekend should cost, if you're going to go on a weekend thing, it should cost you $1,000. Okay. If it costs less than $1,000, it's because the goal of the weekend is to move you to the next step. Okay. And so, like, that's okay. You guys got some value out of it, which was essentially motivation. But what your experience was, which is there's not a ton of content, that's pretty common. Okay. And, like, let's say even, whatever, a 3-hour online course, like, the price of an online course should be, again, $50 to $100 for 2 to 3 hours worth of training. If for some reason it's like a free webinar or it's at a largely discounted amount versus the amount of time that you're going to spend, it's because it's a rung on the value ladder that's designed to move you up it. Have you really been listening to the episode, or has your monkey mind been taking you off in one direction or another? Our mental habits can be our biggest assets or our biggest liabilities as we pursue certain goals. For me, the biggest performance gains have always come from training my mind. In my book, Mindful Landlord, I talk about how you can train your mind and how you can apply some of these strategies to your journey in the real estate field. The book is available on Amazon and also on its website, mindfullandlord.com. And now I'll stop evangelizing for the power of mental training and let you get back to the show. I think as you're shopping for products and you're shopping for knowledge, you need to kind of be aware of what is the price range for the product that I'm looking at and what is the takeaway really going to be for me? Because do I want to pay, for example, $15,000 for training? Do I want to pay $5,000 for training? What's my budget for this? And so, to kind of intentionally sit down and be like, okay, if my goal is to spend $200 and to get the maximum out of this, maybe I need to be really intentional about where I put that money. And so, like, my goal is not to say, oh, you need to buy a $5,000 coaching. That happens to be the price tag on our coaching, right? On our top tier level thing. But, my advice would be intentional about what it is that you're buying and understand what is the price bracket for that thing. So I'll give you another example. Like, one of the value ladder hierarchy things can be like a mastermind. Okay. And so that's then some kind of interactive coaching where, like, there's a weekly call or you're part of something. Like, if you become part of a paid mastermind and it's like a yearly service or something, you're looking at somewhere between, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to be on a weekly call with people for a certain amount of time. If for some reason it's less than that, there's some kind of an upsell there that's trying to move you to a higher level. And, like, the cheaper the initial offers are, the more expensive the big ticket item is going to be. And so, like, my advice would be, if you're looking to pay for training, there's a sign of an organization's like, let's say, honesty or integrity, or how much value you're getting out of each product, is that the prices tag should be in line with what you're purchasing. So familiarize yourself with what is the price tag that is supposed to be associated with this amount of coaching. Like if it's an online course and you're for 3 hours and you're buying it for $1, something's not right. If it's a 2-day training and it costs $200, that's also not the right price. And so by understanding like what is the sort of the spread of how much this should be worth, that's going to allow you to know, like, am I even investing this time appropriately? Because like, sure, it costs $1, but like if it's worth $1, do you really want to invest those 3 hours in that?
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Part of, I don't know, maybe not to defend myself, I just feel like it's a lot of money, like the $5,000 course, if you're not already in the game. And I know a lot of people say, like, if you're going to spend $100,000 on a down payment, why can't you spend $5,000 on your training? But I just feel like so many people spend that money because they think it's the magic ticket to get started. But I kind of wanted to purchase a property first to show, or like to prove to myself that I'm in it. You know, like once I'm in it, it seems backwards, but that was just my thought process, because I wanted to make sure I was committed before I would spend the $5,000. It's not that I'm scared to spend it. I just wanted to make sure that I was, that I'm going to take it seriously, that I'm going to actually apply what I end up learning. So I don't know, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. Is that backwards thinking? Is that reasonable? Like, do you see a lot of people taking this course and just not doing anything with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very legitimate. I think, I just want to like back up a little bit and say, like, maybe with what my goal with what I was saying before is more that you as the consumer who's listening to this, who's maybe a neophyte trying to find their way through all the stuff that's on offer, I want you to understand this value hierarchy, this value ladder thing, and not get trapped by it. Like me as the person who's sitting behind the curtain, I don't want you spending your down payment money on coaching that's not good for where you are. I don't want you spending, 2-3 days of your time. I'm going to say wasted time, but I don't want you to invest that because it's time is money, right? Like if it's time you're not spending on something else. So before you see something that's very a discounted price, like just understand what's going on so that even mentally, if you do end up in that room, you can defend yourself against the upsell and not be the person who runs to the back of the room and be like, oh yeah, I want to put down my down payment money like on $15,000 worth of coaching, right? So, so it's not at all to like sort of criticize your journey. It's more to that I just want to pull back the curtain and that people who are listening to this like understand the way this is structured, because ultimately coaching things are a business. And so they're structured in a specific way. And if you want to make an intelligent purchasing decision, my goal is not to say don't do or don't purchase coaching. I just want you to understand that, like, if you're going to go into a store to like buy a car, understand that there's a sales process and the person who's selling the car is trying to move you through that sales process. Just be aware of what it is. Right. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Right. And in terms of things being backwards, like, I have this conversation in a different context a lot with people who are like, oh, school or university is like a universal good, right? You have to go get a bachelor's degree. Then if you're done, go get a master's. And like, it's a good with a capital G. And my thing is, no, training or education is useful when it's useful and when it's used strategically. So yes, I see lots of people who, pay for coaching and then do absolutely nothing with it. I don't have statistics off the top of my head, but like us as coaches, like we kind of think it's about a 50% rate, right? Like half the people who come through an expensive coaching program will run out and make an offer the first week and follow every single step we say. And the other half will just analysis paralysis, be in the room, and their attendance will slip as the program moves forward, and they're not taking any steps. So definitely, like, it's not a guarantee. And I think in a sense, it can even be a bit of an excuse, right? Like there are conference junkies or coaching junkies who just pay for coaching. It's like paying a gym membership and not going. It's like you think that by paying for the gym membership, you're going to get one step closer to being fit. No, it's actually, you have to actually use the gym membership.
Who would have thought?
Exactly. And so like, you know, if there's one other thing to say as far as like, you know, everybody's journey is different. And, you know, some people never pay for training. Some people pay for training right up front. I think that how one should look at that is just that this is the right training at the right time is like condensed knowledge that will save you time.
Okay.
And so if there is a specific thing that you're missing, for example, you know, want to learn more about multifamily financing. Well, go buy yourself a 3-hour online course of multifamily financing. Or, you know, there's lots of those like on a la carte trainings that you can, you know, sort of purchase individually. And I would say like be strategic about where are you in your journey and what do you need today? Like, what do you need to take the next step? And that can then guide your purchasing decisions. And obviously, like, you know, there's a balance between the school of life and something that you can learn in a classroom or theoretically or from a book. And I think that the fastest way to springboard yourself is some mix of both, because you can't learn everything from books. You do need some on the ground experience, but you can do something on the ground for 10 years and not advance as fast as somebody else because you're just missing like the very simple cookie cutter things that, like, every game, like real estate, it's a system. Relationships are a system, like human relationships are a system. Fitness is a system. Healthy eating is a system. Real estate is a system. And the more you understand the rules of that system, the better you're going to be and the quicker you're going to be able to interact with it in a way that allows you to get what you want. And so, you know, at a certain point, it makes sense for like, let me grapple with this by myself on the ground for a while. And then, no, I've been at this like plateau for too long. If I want to move to the next level and I don't want it to take me 10 years, let me pay for some knowledge or pay for some mentorship that's going to allow me to like move up to the next step in an accelerated manner. And so like with that mindset, you know, be aware that in the industry, like there's a lot of money to be made from coaching, especially from, you know, maybe people who are well off or who can be sort of, I'm gonna say manipulated is a bad word, but like who can be encouraged to sign over a lot of money because there is a lot of fear involved. And it's a kind of a way to be like, well, if someone's going to hold my hand, maybe I'm going to make less mistakes, maybe, but just be aware that there is this, you know, kind of thing of, you know, selling stuff. And then do you really need that? Do you really need that now? Do you need that big of a car, or do you just need a 10-year-old Toyota to get you from point A to point B?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So that was, I mean, that was, we went on a pretty long detour. I think let's move out of the education space and talk about team building a little bit. So after you guys went to the 2-day seminar, you, I think, started approaching networking a little bit with like a team building mindset. Do you want to tell me how that happened for you?
So I think it was more separate. I think we had that motivation from the 2-day training that we had done. And we just realized that the next step is to actually make some contacts that were actually going to be part of our team, like a real estate agent or a broker for mortgages getting pre-approved. I even thought that at that point I needed to start looking for inspectors and notaries, but I came to realize that stuff comes when you need them much later on. So part of what I realized is that it's okay to not work with the first person that you find necessarily. So for example, we were working with a real estate agent that we really liked. Like, we liked his personality. We liked what he was promising us. But then as the weeks went by, we just felt like we weren't aligned anymore. And it was kind of hard to have that conversation, like breaking up with him and saying, like, we don't feel like we want to move forward with you. It has nothing to do with you, just the way that we are. I don't know, kind of felt like it's not you, it's me. And I just wanted to say that that's fine. It's scary, but like, as long as you approach it with a very professional, I don't know, what would you say? Like just approach it professionally, like no harm's done. We still have a really good relationship with that guy, and I wouldn't say anything bad about him. It's just for us and who we are, it just didn't work out. So yeah, don't be afraid to let go of some people that you thought you were going to initially work with.
Well, tell me a little bit more about those, like those initial team members that you felt like you needed, because I think this is also something where, people attend 2-day seminars or 3-day seminars, and then they're like, okay, I need to build a team, I need a notary, I need a tax accountant, I need to incorporate, I need to do this, da 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 da. And like in reality, that's much more complicated than maybe what you need to take the first step. So what did you find were those first contacts that were very useful as you were going through the beginning of the process?
Yeah, first contacts was definitely real estate agent and mortgage broker or a mortgage specialist that was able to give us a pre-approval. We did look into accountants because we were wondering if we should incorporate or not. We probably called a few and met with a couple of them, and we just realized that we didn't need them at that phase of the process. And what we were like, to be able to reach out to those accountants, what we were doing, basically everyone we spoke to would be like, do you have any references? So that's another tip that I can give, is just don't just go on Google, find people at the networking events, get some references, and just call as many people as possible. But yeah, definitely real estate agent to help you find properties, and the broker so you can get your pre-approval so you can actually put down an offer. Those were the two most important ones. And the other ones were just the notary when it actually came to buying, and the inspection when it came to doing the inspection. I realized that those are a lot easier to find than a real estate agent or the bank specialist that you need a bit more of a relationship with, or to build that relationship with them.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think you're also right. Maybe what's buried in there that you haven't articulated is all, in terms of the breakup conversation is, so the percentage of real estate brokers who are familiar of working with investors is actually very small. And like, I don't have the statistics at the top of my tongue, but I know I looked at it at a certain point. It's something like, I think it's like 3 or 5% of brokers work with investors. And incidentally, for any brokers listening to this, they end up servicing 30 to 50% of the business, because when you work with investors, like, though, you need much fewer relationships, because that's repeat business. Whereas like somebody who works on a single family home needs a high volume of single family homes to stay floating. But that's another conversation for another time. But that if your goal is to be like to build an investment portfolio, however small, even if it's a condo, working with a broker who understands the logic of investment is absolutely crucial. And the reality is that, like, once you start your journey, like, every broker will sort of pretend, or like, everybody's sold an investment property once in a while, so they feel like they know what they're talking about. But the number of agents who actually really have that knowledge in a solid way, who can help you read and understand leases, understand everything that has to do with tenants, take you through financial projections, understand even, let's say, the type of mortgage or how you need to structure your financing to be able to, like, then think about what's going to be next for me, right? Like, how can I set this up so that it's not going to be one building, it's going to be 2 buildings, and in 3 years time, da da da. Like, if you control for those variables, you will have a higher percentage chance to find someone who's actually familiar with investment real estate. And like, this is a thing that we, on the inside side of the industry see all the time. Like, I'll get stuck on a transaction with like a broker who's like never read a lease before, and they're trying to help their clients as best they can. But the fact is, unless you are a professional who works with leases and understand, like, the TAL, or like the tenancy codes inside and out, you're actually not helping your client. And so as you're going through those, looking through for those connections initially, definitely try to find people who are familiar working with investors. And after that, there can be personality conflicts or not. Maybe, don't be afraid to break up with someone for like personality reasons as well, but like, definitely about controlling for people who work with investors. And this is where the networking is super important, because everybody there who's purchased something probably worked with a professional, and they will have references for you.
Yeah. I think that's so true that you said someone might deal with a few have sold a few investment properties, and suddenly they're calling themselves investment real estate brokers, because that's kind of the trap that we fell in. We spent hours with the first broker, and he kept on saying, I'll teach you about this stuff. I'll teach you how to analyze a property. And we spent hours, and I don't feel like I got anything out of it. It just kind of felt like a waste of time because he didn't know exactly what I wanted to learn. So I think that's so true. I fell for that trap. It's hard to find, like you said. It's a very small percentage of brokers that do have that knowledge.
Yeah, I know. And there's also like, understanding how different professionals get paid. And I think then we're going to, have to wrap this up because we're kind of running a bit over time. But, if I can pull back the curtain kind of in another way, like understanding how professionals make money helps you understand what their incentives are. And I think like, brokers want to do a deal. And so I don't want to make it sound manipulative that they're misrepresenting themselves, that they have knowledge, that they pretending to you they have knowledge that they don't have. But it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And, for me, like at the beginning of my career, like when I was brokering deals, I worked on all sorts of things, and I sold chalets with septic fields, and I had no idea what I was doing. I sold things that built on like dalle de béton. I have no idea what that implied for the chalet that was built on top of it. And like now I have the intelligence that when someone approaches me to like purchase a chalet, I'm like, no, like let me refer you to this person who's a specialist of like the Laurentians, or who's a specialist of the Eastern Townships, because like I don't have that knowledge. Right. But I think that's with, 15 years of maturity and being at a certain place in your business where you feel like I'm just going to not serve my clients properly if I do that. And so like now I work on very specific things and I refer out for other things. But most agents are in the first 5 years of their career are not necessarily going to say no to business because they see the 2% commission check coming their way. And they're like, oh, how hard can it be? Like I can read a lease, I can sell a triplex. Like it's no problem.
Yeah, no. And I think that's where your network comes in handy. Like you said, you just ask for someone for contacts and they'll be able to refer you to someone. I think that was really important.
Absolutely. So before we go on for too long, did you want to maybe take us through any of like the mental or emotional aspects you had to this like team building phase of what you were doing?
Yeah, kind of. Well, the biggest mental hurdle was breaking up with that the first mortgage real estate broker. It was stressful, and I felt like, oh, like if I tell him I don't want to work with him, like he's going to hate me. And it's not about me. It's business at the end of the day. If he's not going to serve my needs, then I need to tell him that. And in the end, the conversation went really well, but I think you just can't let that hold you back. And yeah, other than the stress of facing that conversation, you just have to do it. And I don't know. Yeah.
No, I
feel like I had more to say, but I don't know why I'm blanking right now.
If I can maybe give you a little prompt, I think there was also this aspect of the fact that working with real professionals who are used to closing deals, I think maybe gave you an additional little push to feel like you have to. Now your back's to the wall. So maybe you want to say a few words about that?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, like that by the time you started working with professionals and like kind of using their services, using their time, it created an additional incentive for you to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Because once I started creating that network, you feel like this is their full-time job, right? Like you don't want to get in their way from making a living, and they still need to feed their family too. And it kind of pushes you as an investor to move forward, and you kind of get yourself not stuck in that situation, but now you're being held accountable because someone else is on the line. And yeah, and that's also why I felt like it was hard to tell him, like, I don't want to move forward with you because we had spent so much time together. Now he's going to lose a sale on us. And yeah, that stressed me out because I didn't want to get in his way, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a tough thing just about how the industry works, right? Is that like and mortgage brokers and real estate brokers are paid on commission. And so there's this kind of like weird sense of obligation that once you've
Yeah.
taken up their time, you kind of owe them something. But I think as the person on the receiving end of that, it's like our job as professionals, first of all, to assess our clients and be like, okay, well, who do I think I'm wasting time with? Who do I think I'm not wasting time with? And then there's just, you win some, you lose some. Like if 50% of the work you do ends up being paid work and 50% of the work is unpaid work, well, if you look at the size of the commission check, like those commission checks are calibrated for a bit of time wasting. And so like, even if he didn't make money with you, he made 10K off his next sale. And so
Yeah.
5K to the time he spent with you, 5K to the time he spent with someone else. Like that's just
Yeah.
kind of how, and when you get into that profession, like, that's how you're going to get paid. And so, as long as you're professional about it, like, don't waste people's time beyond which, you're not going to deal with them. But after that, you don't owe them anything. So,
yeah. And I think that stress, like it did, as much as I did experience that stress, something that did push me forward to being honest with him was because I didn't want to waste his time. And I feel like I didn't want to put on that facade that I was interested in working with him and I didn't want to waste his time. So I think it's also a matter of like honesty and respect as well for his time. And yeah, that pushed me forward too, was just trying to not play around with him too much.
yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I had similar experiences early on in my career where I had to like break up with. Back then, there was a lot more slimy agents, and like breaking up with a slimy agent is like harder than breaking up with the more professional agents today. They're still going to call you back. They just show up outside your house, like God knows what.
Yeah.
But there's definitely that's a universal of the industry.
Yeah, it's true. So moral of the story, just face it and don't waste anyone's time, and you can still maintain professional relationships with them. And maybe we'll cross paths again. Like maybe he just didn't deal well with beginner investors. Like I was saying, I didn't feel like he was able to teach me what I wanted to know. But down the line, once I already know that stuff, maybe he'll be a great partner to work with. Just starting off, that it just didn't work.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so by way of segue, I think we covered what the ground that I wanted to cover in this second episode. Do you want to just give us a little preview? Like, what was the next step for you on your journey, without giving away the punchline?
Yeah, the next step of the journey was actually starting to look for properties. We had looked previously, just what's on Centris? Let's go see. Can we afford this? Can we not? But it's just a different ball game when you actually start looking and it's real and you're doing the analyses, and this could potentially be the property that you're buying. And putting in offers, that's a different emotional roller coaster, and having them get rejected. And that's the next step.
Okay. Well, so guys, tune in if you're enjoying this journey that we're going on with Stefanie. Share it with friends who are starting out so that they can get some insight into what the step-by-step looks like, and then tune in to the next episode to hear about crunching the first deals and throwing out some offers.
Thanks, Terrie.